Hello everybody, welcome to this semi-final match between two teams who qualified from the quarterfinals. My name is Aurélien Orange, and with my colleague Miss Urbanova, we'll be hosting this match today between the University of Applied Science and the University of Colombo. This match is one of the two matches who are currently competing in order to enter the final, which will take place in some days from now. They received as well a topic some days ago, and we will be listening to their debate. Yeah, just one thing, I hear my voice. I don't know who has the speakers open, but I hear my voice at this moment. It's a bit difficult. So, yes, we'll be starting in a few minutes, but first of all, we'd like to give the floor to each participant to this match. So let's start maybe with Miss Varshala. Could you introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. My name is Emily Varshala. I'm currently a Year 2 student at the Hague University of Applied Sciences studying international and European law, and it's my pleasure to be here debating today.
Thank you very much. Miss Tarushi Gamage.
Hello everyone, I'm Tharushi Gamage, currently a final year undergraduate at the Faculty of Law of University of Colombo, representing Sri Lanka. I wish all the best to the opposing team. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Ahmed Amer Nabil Darwish.
Thank you. My name is Ahmed Darwish, and I'm here. I'm a second-year student at the Hague University of Applied Sciences, and I look forward to a fruitful debate.
Thank you very much. And now, as well, Miss Menmutu Abewikrama. Thank you very much. And now,
currently a final year law undergraduate of the University of Colombo. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, Mr. Zaitsev.
My name is Yaroslav Zaitsev. I'm a second-year student at the Hague University of Applied Sciences studying international and European law. It's a great delight to be here, and best of luck to our counterparts.
Thank you very much. The topic that you received some days ago for this match is states that have natural resources such as rivers and industrial minerals within their own exploiting them must request the authorization from the neighboring countries which might be affected by such exploitation. So as you can see, my colleague has shared the screen in order to know which position you will have during the match. And there are two possibilities, in favor and against. And of course, now we'll know which position you will have. So in favor, the Hague University of Applied Science. So it means concretely, the Hague University of Applied Science will be starting the match. And of course, with the opening statement, will be in favor concerning the position. And the University of Colombo will be defending the position against the motion, meaning that states that have a natural resource, such as rivers industrial within their territory, for exploiting them, must not request the authorization. So that will be the position by the University of Colombo. So now you will have 5 minutes to review your argumentation. We'll start then the match.
Before starting the timer for 5 minutes, just a brief administrative instruction for both teams. As there is currently connection issue for the team from University of Colombo, we would kindly ask everyone to turn off their camera when the speaker from University of Colombo will have their time. And of course, the speaker, please keep your camera on. If there are issues proceeding throughout the match, we'll let you know. And we'll just ask everyone else to turn off your cameras when the University of Colombo team will have the floor. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. The time for final preparation has now passed. We'll proceed with the opening statements. As per the draw, the team from the Hague University of Applied Sciences has the position in favor. You now have 4 minutes for your opening position.
Thank you. Good evening. On behalf of the Hague University of Applied Sciences, we'll be arguing for the statement that states that have natural resources within their own territorial borders and that are contemplating exploiting them must request the authorization from neighboring countries which might be affected by such exploitation. We're going to substantiate our position by expanding on the following points. Firstly, not requesting authorization violates the duty of notification and consultation. Secondly, states must adhere to the no harm principle. And thirdly, requesting permission is necessary for preventing transboundary environmental damage. To come back to the first point, not requesting authorization violates the duty of notification and consultation. States do not only enjoy rights, but must also respect their duties to benefit from their environment. To provide an example, in the ICJ case entitled Nuclear Weapons, the court held that states must ensure that activities within their jurisdiction and control respect the environment of other states and of other areas beyond national control. By recklessly disregarding this duty, states can cause irreparable harm in another state solely based on the actions within their own jurisdiction. The requirement of the request for authorization allows risks and consequences of such exploitation to be mitigated in part, if not in whole. Furthermore, the consultation of other states allows collaboration and advice on matters affecting several parties and permitting them all to have a say in a matter that is bigger than every nation alone. Secondly, states must adhere to the no harm principle. Also known as sic ut terre, this is a highly regarded principle of customary international law. The so-called no harm principle requires states to exercise due diligence in the utilization of shared resources within their territory in order to avoid significant damage to other states. To provide a concrete example, in the landmark case entitled the Trail Smelter case between Canada and the United States, the court held that it is the responsibility of the state to protect other states against harmful acts from within its jurisdiction at all times. No state has the right to permit the use of the territory in a manner as to cause injury to the territory of another or properties of persons therein. In line with this latent principle, which encompasses the spirits of states to use their own property in such a way as to not injure other people's, the requirement to request authorization when exploiting natural resources is imperative to adhere to it. Thirdly, requesting permission is necessary for preventing transboundary environmental deterioration. In line with the prior principles and duties, the objective is to prevent harm to other states inflicted by state-centered actions disregarding cross-border consequences. Therefore, states must request permission in order to prevent this. To find a concrete example in soft law, Principle 2 of the Rio Declaration includes in its scope areas beyond the limits of national jurisdiction in its definition. These definitions indicate that the duty to prevent transboundary harm is not only limited to harm caused on the territory of another state, but also harm towards the global commons, which includes the atmosphere. This makes the issue bigger than each state itself and bigger than every nation combined. Ladies and gentlemen, the natural resources that states have at their disposal and that other states are dependent on must be decided on collectively. We cannot disregard the grave consequences that can occur in other states as a direct effect of exploitation of natural resources. In accordance with the duties and principles that are imperative for preventing large-scale environmental harm, states must request neighboring states' authorization when considering the exploitation of their natural resources. In the words of Gifford Pinchot, without natural resources, life itself is impossible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now we are proceeding for the against position. Team from the University of Colombo, you now have 4 minutes.
May I confirm that I'm clearly all and visible?
For the speaker from the University of Colombo, can you please try again?
Am I clearly audible and visible?
Yes, there is a bit of interruption, but you can proceed.
Yes, and I apologize if there will be a lag between my speech. I will proceed now. Legislators, protection of environmental stability, giving due respect to state sovereignty. Thus, presenting the debate with Michael E. Harshamage, and we make ourselves present here today to argue against the motion that states during the exploitation of their natural resources must not request the authorization from neighboring countries which might be affected by such exploitation. Before proceeding, we recognize several harms of this proposal. Prior authorization causes delays in development. This authorization might be given or not given, not only on environmental concerns, but also on other political and diplomatic concerns. And where consent is not given by states, it harms the mutual cooperation and friendships among states. Given all these harms, we have to respectfully oppose based on the following grounds. Firstly, we see that obtaining prior authorization goes against the sovereignty of that particular state. Sovereignty is non-negotiable and cannot be interfered with. According to Montevideo Convention, sovereignty is an indispensable component of a state. Hence, if sovereignty do not exist, a country would not be a state. Undervaluing sovereignty can lead to military interventions, and powerful countries will annex underdeveloped states that ultimately have harmful repercussions on the state. Therefore, upon this very imperative concept of sovereignty, every state is free to manage and utilize the natural resources within its jurisdiction. For example, General Assembly Resolution 1890 states that the rights of states to sovereignty over their natural resource must be exercised in the interest of their national development and of the well-being of the people of that particular state concerned. Thus, the state is free to decide the manner of resource exploitation, conservation, and its management, and could grant license for exploitation. We have to recognize that there are situations in which sovereignty is not absolute, and that is why interference is permitted in circumstances where a threshold of harm is met. However, it is extremely unjustified to interfere with state sovereignty during a mere situation of exploiting its own natural resources, where it might affect neighboring states. Hence, it does not meet the required higher threshold to infringe upon sovereignty. Therefore, we oppose. Secondly, even if sovereignty is disregarded according to the proposition, we oppose since this proposal is extremely unpractical. The state's obligation to authorize exploitation is extremely difficult across the globe. Further, developed and developing states have more concentrated natural resources within territories, but due to their less negotiation powers, these states will have no say on their own resources. This proposal is complex because what if a landlocked all its resources on the four borders of the state and have to ask for consent from many states as opposed to an island state? Thirdly, we see that there are other better alternatives to promote the sustainable use of natural resources. For instance, joint environmental impact assessments could be conducted by states. For example, Article 2 of the Convention on the Protection and Use of Transboundary Watercourses and International Lakes mandates that the parties shall take all the appropriate measures prevent, control, and reduce transboundary impact. It provides the conducting of joint monitoring programs and invites joint bodies for the protection of this marine environment directly affected by transboundary harm. Also, people of an impacted state can domestically in the other state by public interest litigations that show a higher and relatively higher success. It is evident that there are other better alternatives to conserve the environment of neighboring states. Therefore, for those reasons, we respectfully oppose. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are now moving to the first round of rebuttals. The team from the Hague University of Health Sciences, you now have the floor. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. The opposition's argument, in essence, was about the fact that the state has sovereignty and therefore its cooperation with other states through requesting authorization for exploiting natural resources would therefore be a breach of the sovereignty and therefore illegal under international law. However, international law it's also well founded in international law that there's a duty to cooperate. There's the no harm principle. There's equitable and reasonable utilization principles. It is also well founded in international law that cooperation is integral. The first article of the UN Charter says that states must cooperate to reach international solutions. The world has been moving towards global problems, and global problems need global solutions. And if every state is invoking strict sovereignty, there's no way to solve these problems. Problems like global warming and environmental damage are the core of these issues, are the core of global problems that we all face, that all states face. So the idea that sovereignty restricts cooperation is ill-founded. Another thing the opposition claimed is that it would be impractical. The impractical proposition would be to not allow states to cooperate, to allow states to be at a deadlock, both states invoking their sovereignty, being able to use their specific projects, being able to use exploitation or not being able to exploit. This would put the international community at a complete deadlock, both states invoking their strict sovereignty to be able to invoke whatever arguments they may have. And this would be impractical. The practical thing would have environmental impact assessments that would, on an objective basis, be able to accept or deny such requests. And requests of authorization would therefore be the most practical way for to facilitate for international cooperation. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, your mic, I think your mic's off.
Yes, apologies. And now for the against position, University of Colombo, you have 2 minutes. Again, we would ask everyone to turn off your cameras.
So I begin, may I confirm whether I'm clearly audible and visible?
Yes, you may proceed.
Honorable judges, two main points in this debate. As a proposition, there are three major concerns regarding this motion. First one, that there is a duty to notify and consult, and they cited the Trail Smelter arbitration case. While we respect the fact that it is an existing principle to notify and consult with the affecting states, none of these cases require to have the consent from other state. In the Lennox arbitration, it has been clearly defined that the proponent state was not required to obtain the consent of any affected state prior to contemplating exploitation, and notification and the prior consultation was considered sufficient. Furthermore, there are certain critical flaws regarding the implementing of this motion proposed by the proposition. First, we as the opposition sees that such requirement would allow the countries with mala fide intentions with different political agendas to hinder the right and interest of other states by denying giving consent. Therefore, it is questionable how such policy advocated by the proposition is going to further international cooperation as they claim it is, when there is a high probability of it being open to misuse and arbitrary interference with the state sovereignty. Furthermore, judges, the proposition failed to provide you with the specific guidelines as to which a country would have to refer to this to get a consent from another country. Secondly, members of the panel, we all know that there are disparities existing in the socio-economic and political nature of countries. While developed countries have already achieved their goals of development, more than 150 countries in the world are still developing. So there is a question that how this blanket policy is going to be effectively implemented across the board without any discrimination. For these grave consequences, we strongly oppose this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we are entering second round of rebuttals. For the proposition team from the Hague University of Applied Sciences, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. So the opposition is proposing that the weaker side of any negotiation will not be able to reach its goal due to the fact that they'd have to request authorization from the stronger end of the negotiation. However, as we've seen before, sovereignty is the essence of that. Whenever a weaker state requests any authorization, this allows the other state to then accept that or deny it. However, when states invoke sovereignty, it is the power of the state against the power of the other state. And that's how international law works. In general, when we see two countries having some conflicts over the use of natural resources, it ends up being militarily because of the use of sovereignty. And we've seen this with Chile and Bolivia. We've seen this with China and India. Whenever two states invoke sovereignty head to head, it always causes military conflicts. However, this is a way to reach international cooperation in a safe and objective manner. There would be environmental impact assessments which have been used for years now and are well founded in international law. The UN New York Convention also has the no harm principle and the equitable reasonable utilization principle. These principles would guide this into being objective authorization and not subjective. However, with sovereignty, it is always the state that is more powerful that will win, as sovereignty is backed up by military force. However, when they are sitting at the negotiation table, it's completely different. It's peaceful. And this is what the UN calls for in Article 1 of the UN Charter, to reach international cooperation through peaceful manners. And this is the way that this specific proposition ensures that, by asking for authorization instead of going head-to-head about sovereignty and military force. So this solution is actually less violent than the use of sovereignty would be. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. University of Colombo, you now have 2 minutes for your rebuttal.
Before I begin, can I be heard?
Yes, you may proceed.
Members of the panel, there's a problem-solution mismatch in this particular debate. If the problem for the proposition is preventing transboundary harm and there are inadequate laws, we don't see that the model proposed by the proposition would clearly provide a meaningful solution to what they seek. Because even though we believe that there is a duty to prevent transboundary harm, this already can be achieved by strengthening the existing principles like no harm principle and also by strengthening joint EIA assessments, but they failed to classify and make a clear distinction between the existing principles and the model they are proposing in this debate. Because of that, they have critical procedural flaws in their implementation. Therefore, we strongly oppose this motion. Also, judges, it was argued by one of the proposition members that this won't breach the sovereignty and this implementation is less violent and not be as hard as a military intervention. But members of the panel, I must remind you that it has been decided in the case concerning military and paramilitary activities in and against Nicaragua, an intervention is wrongful when it uses methods of coercion in regard to such choices, which must remain free ones. Therefore, when mechanism proposed by the proposition is implemented across the board without any disregarding the disparities existing between the geopolitical circumstances of the countries, we see that securing authorization from other states includes a coercive element. At such circumstances, members of the panel, we must realize that when states are forced to adhere to an arbitrary policy in the name of international cooperation and in the name of environmental conservation, such measures often lead to unnecessary tension. For these reasons, we strongly oppose this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are now approaching the conclusions for today's debate. Team from the Hague University of Applied Sciences, you now have 2 minutes for your conclusion.
Thank you very much. Honorable judges and dear counterparts, the arguments presented by the opposing team most certainly merit thorough consideration. Nevertheless, to arrive at the right conclusion, the following should be borne in mind. The peaceful coexistence of states greatly relies on their cooperation with each other. This should hold true for matters of exploitation of natural resources. The probability that a certain action may come at the detriment of the neighboring states denotes the importance of communication and approval of the execution of the planned action. This form of collaboration wields the nations closer together. It even has the potential of carrying over to other spheres of cooperation. The exploitation of the natural resources by the states should be guided by the norm-harm principle, in accordance with which one is to use his property in such a way that will not harm that of another. Inarguably, states should not fall foul of this principle and therefore must request authorization from the states that stand to bear the consequences of exploitation. As a matter of fact, the utilization of natural resources is bound to bring about effects that go far beyond the harm that may be caused in the territory of another state. The transboundary deterioration of areas beyond the limits of any national jurisdiction, such as atmosphere, is likely to be inflicted. In the interests of preserving interstate cooperation, upholding fundamental principles of customary international law, and averting transboundary environmental harm, countries must request neighboring states' authorization when considering exploitation of natural resources. Thank you very much for the debate and for your attention.
Thank you very much. For the conclusion speech of the University of Colombo, you will have now 2 minutes.
Before I begin, may I confirm that I'm clearly audible and visible?
Yes, you are. You may proceed.
Thank you. Honorable judges, we have to respectfully oppose the proposal based on two major lines of issues. Firstly, it is on whether the exploitation of natural resources is a grave enough concern to impinge upon the sovereignty of a nation. Secondly, it is on whether which team gave the most viable solution to transboundary damages. On these lines, I will now conclude as to why we oppose. Firstly, it should be noted that sovereignty of states should be respected along with the need for environmental conservation. We have to believe that sovereignty is indispensable. Nevertheless, we also respect the idea that sovereignty is not an absolute concept. As we argued, sovereignty could be impeached in circumstances where a high threshold of harm is proven to exist. The situation of exploiting its natural resources does not mean that higher threshold where sovereignty could be interfered with. Secondly, we never deny the necessity of conserving the environment and international cooperation that the proposition mentioned, and neither do we outweigh the rights of people of neighboring states. However, the proposition suggested a very unjustifiable fragmentation for its resources. Also, the sanctions of the proposition are not clear, which were opposed. We opposed since the notion of state sovereignty that I mentioned. Also, we pointed out the harms that arise through this motion, and we made it clear the proposal is extremely unpractical in a world where global political concerns may outweigh the interests of the environment. Most significantly, there's no dire need of implementing this policy in a situation where all alternative remedies have not been exhausted. We mentioned the alternatives such as conducting proper environmental impact assessments and using domestic public interest litigations. Therefore, members of the panel, the approach we advocate for is more pragmatically grounded. For the reasons we mentioned, we vehemently oppose. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to both teams. We have now concluded the part of the debate, which is assessed. So it is now time for a bit of feedback. As usual, you'll be given the floor to reflect a bit of the day's match on the topic, on how you prepared, and also on the performance of your and the opposing team. And after the students, the currently present coaches will also be given the floor. And to start with, Mr. Darwish, what do you think about today's match?
I think it was a very important debate to be had. It was a very topical argument that we had to prepare for. I like to thank the opposition for their arguments. I feel like they were very good, and they had many of the same arguments that we would have used if we were on the other side of this debate. It was very good. I feel like this is one of the most legal debates we've done in the past. Like this one was it had principles of international law, it had many cases, it was very legal and very international law instruments heavy, which was very good. And yeah, you did very well. And I'm happy that the connection worked out before the debate started. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gamage, the floor is yours. What do you think about today's match?
Before I begin, I should be thankful to the Corrects Foundation for organizing such a wonderful and amazing tournament for the undergraduates like us across the globe. And referring to the debate, I think the proposition team came up with really good arguments and they had a really good research. They came up with good examples. And in conclusion, I think as the opposition, I feel like we managed to come up with good rebuttals as well. Anyhow, I wish good luck to the Hague University team.
Thank you very much. We are glad to organize the competition for everyone and see you grow over the rounds. Mr. Zaitsev, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, first, I would like to thank everybody for holding this debate. I'd say that our counterparts did very well. Your rebuttals were very clear. Despite some technical hardships that there were, I'm quite sure that you got your points across very clearly, and the points of contention, they're very clear as well. Thank you very much for this experience. It's been great. You tossed around some ideas that, again, we would have tossed around if we were on your side. But it's been a great experience, and good luck with all of your endeavors.
Thank you very much. Ms. Abewikrama, what do you think about today's match?
First of all, we are really glad to make it for the semi-final rounds of this debating tournament. We also love to thank the Corrects Foundation for organizing such a wonderful tournament. There were really good arguments that were brought out by our opponent team, and I wish them all the very best for their career. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Varshala, the floor is yours.
I can only share the opinion on expressing my thank yous to the organization and also the opposition, and of course my team as well. I can just agree with everything that's been said so far. I think the other team has been extremely well researched, very eloquently spoken, and I think that it was a really fruitful debate. So many thanks for that. Of course, I'm also very happy with the performance of my team, and we're really glad to be here debating with you. So all the best going forward.
Thank you very much. And now for the currently present coaches, I believe Professor Gaibova, if you would like to give some words to the team.
Just to confirm, can you all hear me? Can you see me? All right, great. Congratulations, everyone. I thoroughly enjoyed this match. I think it was excellent delivery-wise and, of course, substance-wise. I can't comment much on the substance, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a great experience for me, and I think the arguments were strong, so you should be proud of yourselves. I hope you have a lovely Friday evening, and good luck to whichever team makes it to the final. I look forward to watching the final. Thank you, and thanks, of course, special thanks to the Corrects Foundation and everyone involved. You've done a massive job for setting it up, and it's really something else. It's really impressive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Khalil, as the second coach present on today's call, you have the floor.
That's the problem of going last. You don't have a lot to say because everybody has said like everything there is to say. Nonetheless, big, massive congratulations to both the teams. I think you both did really well. Particularly, I'd like to congratulate Ms. Abewikrama. You kept your composure even though your connection was being disrupted. So congratulations on that. And both the teams, great rebuttals, great points, and I echo what Ahmed said, that this has been one of the matches that I watched which has been legally quite sound, and lots of legal arguments and arguments have been thrown at each other. So all the very best for your future endeavors, and may the best team win.
Thank you very much. And perhaps a bit of traditional question to both teams. For the team from University of Colombo, have you had a chance to visit Hague? Or Netherlands?
Yeah. We haven't.
All right. And a question to the participants from The Hague. Did you have a chance to visit Colombo, Sri Lanka?
Well, from what I know, I believe I'm speaking on behalf of the whole team. We haven't had the fortune to do that yet, but I'm quite sure that we have a lot of time ahead of us.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone. This officially concludes the match. We'll keep